Okay, this is another YouTube video from my group series session part 7. I'm going to try to bring up the PowerPoint. Hopefully it's not audio only. Um, at any rate, it's group-oriented skills. I am Dr. Mark Carriage. I have a YouTube thing called Progressive Therapy Mark S. Carriage or something of that nature. Um, and this is like 7 out of 10 or 12 group-oriented videos. Okay, I've been around for 45 years, been doing groups since '84 or so. Um, Received my bachelor's degree in 1979 at SIU Edwardsville in psychology, master's in counseling 1981 from SLU, which is short for St. Louis University for you non-St. Louisans. Got a PhD in counseling 1985 from SLU, counseling psychology internship at Texas Tech University 84 to 85, which was one of the best experiences I ever had. It really shored me up for professional work. You can call me Dr. Mark, Dr. C. I've been called a number of things over the years as I spent at least 40 years in corrections, mostly inside the joint, a few years outside the joint. Um, I'm currently working in a private practice with under Chad Welch in Metro East Counseling in Swansea, Illinois, which is in the Metro East of St. Louis, hence Metro East. Okay, I can be reached at mcarich at AOL.com. mcarich at AOL.com. No comments on the AOL address. At least it's not dial up, and I still have a flip phone. Now, Matt Adams is the one that's inspired me. He's kind of shown me how to do this stuff. He is not present today, but he's like my go-to person on this stuff. Okay, today we're talking about group techniques. So you have different types of techniques you use in group. One is group-centered, involving the group, or individually oriented, where you're involving a member of a group. And the key is whatever interventions you're using, you want to keep the group involved. Okay, group techniques. When you're looking at any technique in therapy, you want to kind of scope out the impact that's going to have. So, Phil Rich said there could be a personal impact on the group members' actual issues. That's what you're directing it towards. And interpersonal, which means at least two members or more of the group and the entire group. So, and I've done them all, mostly integrating individual interventions with the utilizing the group process. Okay, intervention intensity. That's the impact of the intervention. So you have low intensity, which is mild, just like real mild hit. Moderate is a little more than mild, but not extremely strong. And high intensity means you really created a big impact. You got a good aha moment or some change going on. So there's different intervention forms or types, like conceptual, which is verbal, directly addressing the group members' issues and dynamics. Experiential means some either nonverbal activity, exercise, something such like that stirs up the emotional, cognitive, experiential domains, such as art therapy, movement, role play, and stuff. Uh, I do the role play. I'm not into art therapy. I've seen it work very effectively, but I draw stick people, and drama is mainly the role play. Movement, I don't do movement at all. But I've seen it done in combination with drama can be effective. Depends on what you're doing. Structured activity that is role play, typically in the form of structured activity as in workbook exercises. We used to call them task assignments back in the 80s and 90s. Thought that was fitting. Okay, we wrote a paper a long time ago, well, 21 years ago, on principles of intervention. Funny story was the original editor of the journal, or that column, wanted it in his column. He retires. And when he retired, he was like done with the field. And so the next guy that came in didn't see it too fitting for the family thing, which we could have made it more applicable to family stuff. It's applicable to anything. And we put out a paper, which I think is useful in terms of the principles of intervention. So you have respect. You acknowledge the person as a unique person, as a human being of worth. So you differentiate whatever they're working on, which I've spent 40 years working on, helping people with sexual aggressive issues. So that's just a part of them. So you have to have a holistic viewpoint. And so they're still a worthwhile human being, even though they've done some stuff that's not so nice, leaving not so nice consequences. Um, Rapport. You have to engage, you have to connect, you have to have psychological contact with the client. In this case, in the group, clients. But you have to maintain that connection as well. Compassion. You have to have empathetic understanding of what's going on and of those people in your group, the members, and it's got to be portrayed as well. Flexibility, which is really means in Webster, pliability. I always look things up in Webster to get a real meaning. At any rate, an ability to adapt. You got to be flexible within your structure, within your framework, to adapt to stuff that comes up that perhaps you weren't expecting to emerge. Utilization principle developed by Milton Erickson. The rest of that was fairly Adlerian, I think, as well as Ericksonian. But anyway, Erickson said utilize the client's responses. So even if you use this wonderful intervention and you only got unlimited what you expected, if you didn't even expect anything, you got something, utilize it. Don't freak out. Don't press the panic button. Just simply utilize it towards the client's goals, towards the change process. Responsivity principle, which came from Andrews and Bonta, criminal psychology, treatment of conduct and such. And came out of the 90s, really, early 90s, where they said identify the risk level, identify the client's needs, and which are related to criminal behavior, and then be responsive to the client. So being responsive to the client is what pertains to this discussion. You want to be responsive to the client's learning style, needs, personality, etc., and situation, I might add, etc. Be understanding, be responsive to what's going on, including intellect. Uh, in terms of managing groups, since this is kind of what this is sort of about, um, Jacobs outlined establishing and maintaining a therapeutic context, direct the flow of communication. Because you are the leader, you have to monitor the clock, you have to direct stuff, or if the group's good enough, they'll direct it themselves under your tutelage and watch. Again, you're not going to be king of the flow. You're just going to help guide it, direct it. Monitoring the clock involves portioning out the time on the issues that are being addressed. Like you can't spend all day on somebody, and you spend a large portion of time. You want to get the group involved, knowing the issues, know what's going on with the different members of your group, being aware of people's reactions verbally and non-verbally throughout the group. Okay, some key techniques. One is called cutting people off. You don't want to do it in a shame punitive way. I have done that before. Back in the old days when we used to conduct ourselves that way, not good. It's only used when a member's comments conflicted with the group purpose, or it's way out there trying to reel the person back in, or a member is dominating, taking over the group, or it's near the end of the session, so you can in the group. You can do this by avoiding eye contact. You can scan the group by inviting other people to respond, therefore cutting that person off. You can challenge or confront the member's needs on doing that. You can give gestures, signals, nonverbal cues, whatever, touches, minimal cues such as nods, facial expression, eye movements, shift in body posture, etc. They indicate, hey, whoa, enough's enough. Metaphors for paralleling, you can use any kind of parallel communication to the member's situation. Refocusing the group's attention. You can ignore that person by not attending to them. Shifting in voice tone, pacing and leading, which came from the NLP stuff. Focusing on the member's needs for productive verbiage, like what is going on. Okay, the next skill is drawing out people. How do you get people to respond? How do you get quiet members to say something? And usually the quiet members know exactly what's going on because they're paying attention to everybody's responses. So you want to respectfully invite them into the group conversation, it is, because they're already part of the group. They're already responding nonverbally. So you want to directly and verbally focus on them, inviting them by asking them to join, to comment. You can use group rounds. You can use metaphoric messages geared to draw them out, like, oh, I get it. Self disclosure, making sure it's limited. The good old Kharkov dimensions of respect, immediacy, confrontation, challenging. Immediacy means here and now. Concreteness, or being real specific with something. Specificity, um, again, being real concrete instead of abstract, unless you're doing it for intervention. Empathy, being compassionate about the client, understanding the client's perspective and communicating that understanding. Being genuine. So nonverbal gestures. Um, you can scan the group, glance at that person, inviting them to participate. You can use the feedback loops to get them roped in. The here and now stuff. Um, identification of the process, trying to articulate what's going on and get them to express opinion. Imparting information, again, allow them to process with that. Linking members to different members and to the quiet members as well. Processing open-ended questions, allowing them to express themselves. Shifting the focus, changing topics, or doing exercise or whatever the case may be. Doing rounds. Going around the group is doing rounds. Even if your group figure is not rounds, you're still doing rounds. So you have to understand what's going on in the material. So there's different categories of group rounds, including a designated round, like one word. People go around, give a number, give a word, or whatever the issue is, the dynamic is. Words or phrase rounds, they give brief phrases. Comment, you elicit opinions. They throw out opinions. Stationary rounds means members make a statement to each group member. That includes same statement or question using no specific sentences. They still go around eliciting um, responses from the group. Okay, so the in-depth group rounds, group asks the same question repeatedly over and over, going around the group. And then predetermined moves means the member moves in front of selected members. I don't do that. I'm not comfy with that anymore. I did it in my younger days. Must be age. At any rate, the overall use of group round. Why do we do group rounds? Well, gathering information, assessing where people are, feeling and where they're thinking, locating energy levels so you can move it around, summarizing, assessing needs, generating energy, generating interest, building comfort zones and trust, group cohesion. We're in this together. We're all a team. We're all a group. Processing information, drawing out quiet folk, quieting down more verbal folk, and deepening the intensity. You want to scan periodically look around the room, group room, draw people in. Interpreting, providing a frame of reference is another intervention. Blocking, you can block interactions verbally or non-verbally. I prefer verbally. Redirect or rechannel the responses. Okay, now we're to the point of intervention delivery. So there's generic aspects of all of this. Believe me, I spent the last 2 or 3 decades trying to tease out what's generic across the models, and I've come up with an intervention delivery system that you commit to memory. One is therapeutic goals. Know what you're shooting for. Know what you're doing. Establish rapport with the group and the client's cohesion in this case. Establish a contextual frame so that the intervention kind of makes sense when you drop it or shoot it out there. Select therapeutic messages that are trying to be delivered. Select your intervention options, like how am I going to deliver this? Delivery of interventions, and then utilize wherever the outcome is and monitor the outcome. In conclusion, I got 2 conclusions of this in my PowerPoint. Why? I have no idea. So, most of these interventions are primarily group interventions. And to come in another segment is more individualistic interventions. But again, when you do individual interventions, which there's no crime, shame to it, you get the group involved. Group process. Remember your principles of interventions and use your intervention delivery. Therapeutic messages are typically tucked away in the interventions. So if there's any questions, call or not. Do not call because I will not answer. For one, because everybody is trying to sell me something I don't want. So if I don't recognize the number on my phone, I will not answer. Um, but contact me at M, and here it is in the PowerPoint,